We're back with Fullback, which is our weekly podcast on all things Barca, where we combine and compress everything that's been happening last week and give our own opinion. With the week that has gone by, the biggest story was PSG and the game against them and the defeat and everything that happened around that. Big stories also include Lamine and his injury, and then the much-awaited renewal of Frankie De Jong. And those of you who are Ansu fans would be happy with the start that he has got at Monaco.
Unfortunately, it's not been a great week for Barca fans, but you have to get used to that. It's not always going to be sunshine and rainbows, but we do know that. Let's start with the most pressing thing, or the latest thing, which is Lamine and his injury and how the people have reacted to that. Because there's a lot of conspiracy theories that floating around. Is this an actual injury? Is it just Barca trying to prevent Lamine from traveling with Spain on the international break? But there's a lot of talk around that. But what I would say before we even dive into it is that Lamine did not look fit against PSG at all. So I think this is not as big of a surprise as people might try and make it out to be.
I don't think he should have played that game. I think even Barca rushed him back. Just watch him at full flow in some of the games last year, specifically Inter. Watch his energy till the last minute. And that tells me that he wasn't that fit, but he was politely asked to play. And he played for his club, which is the same thing that we blamed De La Fuente for, that he made him play. And the thing that we discussed last week, that players like Lamine will be asked to play. Doesn't matter which coach it is. Now we can say yes or no, and we can support the club and be against the national team. But the reality is players like him are differential players. They can make something happen out of nothing. And coaches will want them to play. And we wanted him to play. And he did create some moments of magic. But as you can understand, that I think he's really injured and he needs this break. Of course, Barca will have one eye on the Clásico because a loss in the Clásico causes a lot of pressure. It's really neck and neck at this moment. He shouldn't have played. He played, it aggravated, and now he needs time off.
Yeah, it's a bit strange. I wasn't expecting Lamine to start. I was absolutely sure that he would play, because it's a big game and you can't not have your best player feature. As you said, everyone does this, and not just Barca, every other team, international or club, they do rely on their best players, and sometimes they do over-rely on them as well, which is normal. When you have players of such quality, you can't expect coaches not to use that trump card, use them as something to tilt the game in their favor, especially a Champions League game against the champions of Europe themselves. You can't expect not to feature, but I wasn't expecting him to start. I think that's the big difference that I would say here. And maybe that was the mistake as well, because when you start the game, everyone is fresh. Everyone is going full throttle. Everyone is trying their best, and everyone's giving their all. And PSG were very physical with us. They were tossing us around. They were fouling us. They were really imposing themselves physically. And I think to put Lamine in that game state, in his own fitness state, that wasn't the best idea. But then again, without Lamine, maybe we wouldn't have looked that good in the opening half an hour.
We are incredibly lucky that we are blessed with these incredible kids who are doing incredible things. But if we start taking that for granted and make it like that's nothing, that's like normal, then we are doing a disservice. Their bodies are not yet ready. And it'll be in the best interest of the club, of the fans, of football, everybody, if they're given that time to adjust and really reach that maturity to play the way that they can play. But I doubt that will happen. Modern football, the pressures of commercialization, the pressures
of Lamine is too late. Yeah, it's too late for Lamine. There's no way that he's going to sit.
Yeah, the horse has bolted. If Lamine plays, the horse has already bolted, so he will be a victim of that fame. But it's going to come with a price, because at 18, he has already had quite a few injuries this season, which are back-to-back. He does need rest. He hasn't recovered, and he will need time to come back to his pure match fitness.
We'll see when that actually happens, because obviously Barca will have big games coming up, and with, as I said, league being neck and neck, every game will matter. I don't know how aggravated that injury is, or how serious it is, or how serious it was to begin with, because that's the same injury that he's had right before his PSG return. So I don't know how big of an issue that is. Obviously, it's not a surgery type of or injury. So we're lucky in that sense that it's not something that will keep him out for months. Initial reports do state a couple of weeks, but then we are used to getting that
And
news
that becoming
happened.
a month.
And then
And
that
then
becoming, I don't know what to expect, but the initial reports at least are, let's say, optimistic, and we'll take it for now because we have to. He's our best player, most differential player.
Whether we like it or not, there was this sense of dependency that was growing, and it is inevitable when you're a player of that style. It forces us to play with the players that we have. It forces other players to contribute. It looks a lot more balanced, and probably we need it. We need that resiliency among us as a team.
We managed to win all of our games without Lamine this season, which is good because last year we couldn't do anything, just lost
We
every
struggled.
Yeah.
Pedri and De Jong, they also looked out of sorts completely in that game. If you run them this ragged 7 games into the season, what will happen in May?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's cut back to the game. In the recent years, obviously, PSG have got the better of Barca. They're a better team than Barca right now. They're better drilled, and we saw that on the pitch, that even with some of their best players out, they were fairly comfortable throughout the game. Overall, we got a beautiful goal from that assist from Rashford, which was great, and we were 1-0 up. But PSG never looked like they were out of sorts at all, even with none of their front three there. There is this compilation that's going on in social media about all the games, all the goals Barca has conceded. I don't know whether you've seen it on Twitter or X.
I have. Yeah, there's all the same goals. Yeah,
they're all the same. They are basically the same goal from each of the team. And this time also, we could have probably been defensive and saved that last goal. Probably. Probably, I say. It can still have happened, but probably we could have saved that last goal. Dogmatism is good. Yes, all great coaches have their set way of working. But do we need a solution for this? Because there are way too many times that we have conceded in exactly the same way across a multitude of teams.
Yeah, it's definitely a problem. And this season we have been seeing a difference in how Flick approached his games. A couple of games we really praised for being the mature coach that has implemented changes that need to be implemented. And Newcastle were, I think, the best example of how you should approach a team that has all the tools to hurt you and has plenty of those tools available in the game that target your weaknesses specifically. And Barca approached that game really well, whereas with PSG, it was the opposite. It was like we reverted back to the Inter game and we tried to do the same thing over and over again, even though we saw that it didn't really bring us results. I don't know if it was just a team panicking or if it was instruction from Flick saying, okay, we are going to maintain our idea, even though it might hurt us. But yes, to your point, there needs to be an adaptation. And to Flick's point, he is doing that to a certain extent. And we'll be talking about this a little bit more, but the way Barca pressed PSG, it required like inch perfect execution. It starts with the pressing triggers because Barca, the way we press is we move from a zonal approach to a man marking approach where you have the midfielders kind of present the zones, not the player. But then when the ball goes back, for example, to the goalkeeper, Barca immediately switch to the man marking approach and everyone gets their marker, but it needs to be perfect. It starts with the wide players, as it usually does, and if the winger is late in pressing his fullback, the domino effect starts. Because then our fullback has to push up and he has to defend two players. He has to defend his fullback and his winger behind him. And that's what the issue began with our pressing shape. Because when you lose the legs, when you lose the concentration, you're going to be late. And if you don't, Barca play a fine margin game. If they miss a beat, they are dead. That's what keeps happening. Yeah. So I think the idea here should not be so extreme. We should not depend on these margins. We should not have a system that is either going to be a great win or a big downfall. Right?
In this team, for all the talent that we have, Dom, I don't think we have the players who can play this system. Inigo was good and he somehow made it happen last year and we got the benefit of it. But in Bayern, he had Alaba. Think about that Bayern team and the physicality of that team.
Yeah, they were athletes.
Think about Barca. There's no comparison. There's simply no comparison.
The thing is with that, I do agree. And athletes make this system work much easier.
Yeah.
But Barca, what they do, they rely on timing and reading the triggers. Every player needs to know, okay, now is the time for me to press, and I need to do it immediately. Because if I'm late, then my teammate behind me will be late, and then the teammate next to him will be late, and then the guy next to him will be late. And that's how you create these superiorities when you're PSG. PSG had 2 versus 1s and 1 versus 1s across the pitch. Just from one player being late in the press, which was not calling out names, but it was Lamine, for example. in that one scenario, and that puts Koundé in a 2-1 situation.
And we saw it so many times, and that's why Koundé's performance was so bad, and it got criticized and so on. But if you really saw the game, you would have seen that this was a press that was not working, because of which he had too much on his hand to manage. And this happened across the board. People criticized Kubarsi for the first goal as well. But look at the build-up of that goal.
Yeah, exactly. That goal was meant to be prevented like 2 or 3 moves before.
3 moves ago, it should have been stopped. It should never have gone there. Once it has reached there, then you are saying, okay, go into a last-stage tackle or what have you. So yeah, I think there is a fair bit of revisionism around this. But what we do really need to somewhere talk about is they have a better team. From the time Luis Enrique joined to now, PSG has spent close to 803 million euros. 3 seasons, 3 windows, and they've spent that much. They've also sold players and have recovered around 400. If you go to transfer market, I'm not nitpicking into the exact number, but that's the basic gist of it, correct? So, and they were handpicked after the movement. They were handpicked, correct, for a system with a coach as experienced as Luis Enrique. So, on one side, you have a team of that caliber, which has been playing incredibly well last season. This season also, they were 2 steps ahead of us. Look at the heart of that team. They're seasoned professionals who have been doing this for a while at the highest level, right? To when they couldn't find the winning goal, Goncalo Ramos, that's 60 million. That's 60 million, right? Where is the 60 million striker that we have on our bench just sitting there? We have one Lewandowski, right? And he's also fading. So somewhere we got to understand that, yes, we're lucky with these kids that we've got, but they're not yet ready for that next level. And the faster we accept that, it's better. Yes, last year we had an insane luck because Rafinha had an insane season.
Yeah, this team will need a lot more juice, a lot more reinforcements than we initially have thought maybe. But yes, it is true. The difference in spending, the difference in just being able to specifically go into the market and say, okay, I need this kind of profile at this kind of level, and I'll have it. I can have it. Where Barca,
nobody's asking them to prove their financial fair play. There are no registration issues. You don't have to stop one player to get another player. None of that nonsense is there. Like Flick's entire budget for 2 seasons is what, 80 million, 90 million?
I know.
That's basically it.
The thing is, our 60 million reinforcement was playing from the start, and then obviously we can go into Dani Olmo and how effective or ineffective he was, which is a problem to an extent for Barca, but it's not just Olmo, right? It's not, we can't just say Olmo, if someone else was there, it would have been a different game. I don't think that's how it works, especially when a team gets outplayed as a team, which that's exactly what happened to us.
If you're controllers in that midfield and you're against that press, you need physical players. Now, De Jong is a physical player, but Pedri isn't. They targeted Pedri, and we all saw that. And that was it.
De Jong had to be soft after the yellow card. He was being very cautious, very subdued, I would say. He wasn't going to tackles. He wasn't trying to duel. And when you lose that side of De Jong, because as you say, Dev, he is one of those players that has to match PSG in intensity, in physicality, in dueling, and just being that presence in that midfield, but he was gone. I'm not saying the yellow card is an excuse. It's not. It's not. But
none of them is an excuse, but they don't have the personnel to go to toe.
We did.
If you want to fight with the Vitinhas, if you want to fight with the Nuno Mendezes, and if you want to fight with that team, that core, and the Hakimis and so on and so forth, you need equivalent players.
Yeah, we needed that. And I think from the back line, it started with the back line because we couldn't get out. Right? Without João Garcia in goal, as we said, this would be the biggest test for Barca. How do they manage a press that's actually coordinated, that's actually done with athletes, and with intensity that we've not faced so far? Yes, we've faced Rayo Vallecano and we've faced Newcastle, both of which teams did give us a taste of that, but we had João Garcia, for example. We had players, and we managed to find Pedri and De Jong in good situations where they could actually progress.
I think Rashford should have stayed. I thought Lamine should have been taken off long ago. They should have given a longer time to just adjust and get into the game and all what have you, because nothing was happening anyways. And from a defense perspective, I think some shuffling wouldn't have been bad. If you don't have the right people and you're seeing that you're being overrun, Eric can play midfield, bring him up, get an Araujo, get us Christensen behind. There are Suruj, we were not matched equal to equal, and it showed throughout the game. And yes, we also had notable exceptions. Some people were not, they were injured, and we can always debate that what it could have been. But the reality was there was a game, and we saw it, and we were outplayed
We
completely.
were, and it's
There is
not.
nothing wrong
Yeah,
in accepting
yeah, no
that
shame
with
in
these
that.
kids, we probably should be okay if this happens at times because they haven't done this. They're just one season old in that sense.
Yeah, they are, and these players will learn from that. I think when Barca lose, there's a lot of overreaction, right?
If you remember Bayern last year, the game that we won, Champions League, remember the
Mhm.
first 30 minutes? We were
And
run ragged. That was 10 times worse than what PSG had done. We were lucky. We were
mm,
lucky. Rafinha scored 3 goals out of freaking nowhere, and we won the match. And
yeah,
then we became the best team in the world. But if you really watch the game, Company had us pinned like we had no
yeah,
answer for the first 30, 35 minutes.
yeah. And I think the thing is with our first 30, 35 minutes, which were good, and I still think they were good. I think if you can continue that, then it becomes
Or
an
you kill the game
advantage.
there. Either you
Yeah,
continue that or you score your three
yeah.
goals in that 25 minutes and that's it, done. The match's over.
Because that's what Barca usually do to La Liga team. Obviously, different quality, different teams, but that's what they do, right? They dominate consistently, and they chip away at you consistently until you can't. You lose focus, you lose the legs. You get so frustrated and so angry and so weak, so powerless, and then they crush you, right? With PSG, we could manage that for a while, but then we just ran out of gas. They started taking over the game slowly. Then it's mentally in your head is also okay. These guys that actually match us. That not only can they survive our dominating part, but they can take punches back. They can hurt us back. And I think we were not ready to face that, to experience that. And then, of course, yes, injuries. He was half fit. He wasn't really. He was waving passes off. He was like, "No, don't pass me the ball." And when you play with a man down like that, offensively and defensively, against a team that has all the tools to crush you, this happens. And that might be the reality of this team, which is not bad, to be honest with you, because
It's not
we
bad at all. Why
yeah,
are we expecting these kids to go and win the Champions League? I don't know. They're not ready. They're really not ready. If you win it, that's a bonus. Amazing. But if they don't, and if they do round of 16 or quarterfinal, that's good enough. That's really good enough for what we have, how much we have invested, and what the team is. We want to talk about apples to apples. Give Flick one transfer window with the
yeah.
players that he wants. Give him carte blanche. You can go buy the players that you want. Make a Champions League winning team. Let's talk after that.
Obviously, Barca will have to wait for a long time that'll happen. We don't know if that's going to happen in Flick's tenure. Maybe it does. Who knows? Barca money are funny.
It wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't the greatest game, and it can happen again. The kids, like, they are at a level, they're not at the next level. If we do win, that's good, and it will make us happy. But for consistency, they need time. They need time, and we need some other profiles. With this team, with the kind of personnel that we have, we cannot win all these games against top teams
Yeah,
consistently. There are
yeah.
too many holes in too many places, which we are trying to manage, which we probably should be mindful of. Let's keep moving. There are two stories. Finally, it looks like that De Jong is coming back, and De Jong is signing the deal for another 3 years that will take him to 2029. That would be 11 years in Barca. That's a pretty long stint for Frankie De Jong. And for somebody with whom the fan base has been pretty much divided for the majority of his career. But I think there's a good story out there. I think he's done so much good for Barca, and the team looks so much better when he plays. Honestly, the worst was that if he doesn't renew, that who do we find
Oh
of
yeah.
that caliber? With the budgets that we have, they're not that many.
Oh no, there's no one out there. Even if you had the money, it would be difficult to find another Frankie De Jong and bring him to Barca. Yes, I'm happy too. Obviously, everyone knows that. And yes, this PSG game will bring some shade to Frankie overall because he has been scapegoated as well. And I do think the criticism was fake. He had to do more. It's a big game where your best players need to shine. If he is our best player, one of our best players, and he is that, then he needs to step up. But yes, overall, this season has been a revelation for many people, many fans out there. And I'm happy that's happening. And I think, to your point, Dev, 11 years at the club, you don't do that if you don't bring value.
Yeah.
Players can't survive at Barca if they don't perform. Look at this, some of the biggest names that we've had. That
3 years, 4 years,
yeah.
5 years.
3, 4 years maximum, and that's it. You're out. If you don't get that many chances to be bad at Barca, and which is fair because only the best players can play at Barca. We don't really do bad players. Okay, yes, sometimes we'll fluff a transfer, but that's usually a profile mismatch or something. If Frenkie renews and it's like he will, and that will happen on lower wages. So that now I'm wondering how that changes the whole perspective around Frenkie, because it's always been he's not performing in relation to the wages that he has.
Looks like everything's being done and the announcement should be made. And if it does, I'll be happy. Dom, you will be happy. You've been Frankie's biggest supporter for the longest time. And as it's easy to criticize, it's easy to say, he's not good enough, sell him, get 80 million and whatever. But if you sell Frankie De Jong, you're not getting anybody close to that replacement with the budgets that we have.
No.
I think we're lucky that he's decided to stay, and our team will play better because of that decision. So that's on Frankie. The other person that we want to talk about, Ansu Fati. After many failed chances, rehabilitation, multiple attempts at loan. This was Monaco this time. And it was a strange start because he didn't start for the longest time in any game. They had a very tailored program for him. They were working towards that. And then he started, and as luck would have it, he scored a few goals. And while I wouldn't say it's the old Fati back, but even if he can adjust his game to what his new reality is, he has enough of that instinct to be still very lethal.
Oh yes, I think for Fati that's the thing, right? He has to accept who he is now and has to adapt to it, and the coaches have to adapt to it. They can't play him the same way that he's been played at Barca when he just started. So I think that is the biggest thing. It's profiling and optimizing that profile. And again, we keep saying this. Flick does that. He's very good at exactly that. So if Ansu was, fingers crossed, was to return to Barca in great shape one day, being reinvigorated both mentally and physically, then I'm sure the Flick would find a way to optimize or maximize his profile, which is exactly what we need. But at the moment at Monaco, it seems that something is working. They are playing to his strengths. They know what kind of player he is. Okay, this is a player who has immense lethality, immense ball striking, and great movement. Okay, let's get him close to the goal. Let's put him into these narrow positions. Let's put him inside the box, and he will do the rest.
And feed him.
And feed him, exactly. So that's what you have to do with Fati. Just, in a way, minimize what he has to do. It's the same with Lewandowski, for example. Now, if you ask Lewandowski to be what he is not, or to do too many things, he will look lost. He will be out of sorts. But if you minimize, if you put Lewandowski in a small box and say, okay,
in the box, be a predator, score goals.
Exactly. You have one job, essentially. It's not one job, obviously, but you have one job, and that's what you have to do every game. And he's okay, yes, coach, and he will do that. Fati is similar, okay, but he's obviously 22. Yeah, he's much younger, so there's a lot of they can do with Fati over the years. But what he has to know is who he is at the moment and how do we get the best out of that profile. And he has to accept it as well. He has to accept, okay, this is who I am now. This is the next step in my evolution. It might not be what I had wanted, but it is what it is. And then from there, there's still a player you can salvage. More than just salvage, because Fati has these attributes that will always be relevant. Goal scoring will never go out of fashion, right? And that's what Fati does. So I think there's always going to be a player in there. It's just how do we flip the switch in his head and say, okay, you're still good. Rashford is the same thing. He needs to get it right in his head first, and then everything else will come, hopefully. Fati, very similar, I think.
Maybe it will be a great season for Fati at Monaco, and maybe he will come back next season to lead the line with Lamine. What a story that would be. Probably won't happen, but no harm in dreaming about that. No harm wanting that to happen, and no harm wishing him the best from afar. Because I think the entire Barca fan base was so happy to see him score. See him there was so much of conversation that was happening. There's so much love and affection people have for him, and everyone wants to do good. So hopefully some of that positivity rubs off and he delivers, because he deserves a break, one. And when he's on song, he's a great player to watch. He's simply an excellent player to watch. So it would be good for fans as well to have somebody of that caliber come back to somewhere close to his core talent or what have you. But that's it, guys. Those are the key stories of this week. Subscribe, share. We'll be obviously coming up with a couple of stories. Watch out for Dom's article on Flick's highlight. He's done a great piece of research, and I know you guys would love it. So watch out for that piece. It's coming down. I've written a couple of articles around comparison. So we actually analyzed Rashford and Rafinha, and we compared them. And so there's that piece that's going to come out. And we also did a profile on a couple of players, which I will not talk about now, but keep a watch. There's some good content coming our way. Let us know whom else you want to cover. So, Tom, anything else before we sign off?
No, as always, thank you for supporting us, for watching us, listening to us. And as Dev said, just make sure to keep an eye because we are in full flow at the moment. We are churning our content and hopefully you guys like it. And we'll see you after the game. So I think that's it from us today. Stay tuned, stay safe. And as always, Visca el Barça.